Hello friends, we are with the last lecture for the 7th week on Girish Karnad's Tughlaq. We have titled the lecture as Tughlaq Further Analysis. In all the weeks, we have focused on certain human relationships, reflections on life, comparison with some other text, takeaways, and all those elements we will now cover in this presentation on further analysis, in addition to certain topics like political allegory, poetic qualities, and then summarize the presentation. Let us see the objectives now. The first objective is to discuss the allegorical dimensions of Tughlaq. The second objective is to examine the poetic qualities of the play with reference to simile and metaphor. The third objective is to explore how Tughlaq and Aziz approach human relationships. One is a king, another is a common man, but how do they approach human beings in their relationships? The fourth objective is to consider the larger meaning of life in Tughlaq. What is this life all about? That is the crux of our course, to understand the relationship between literature and life. And finally, to think about possible lessons for life from the play, that is, takeaways from the play. Let us begin with the political allegory. We have to remember that this is a play which is timeless and universal. That means it is applicable to all times and all places. We have certain evident allegorical structures and signs throughout the play. Apart from the main character, we have certain incidents which contribute to the resemblance between the past time and the present time, and probably in future also we will have similar actions or events. The play has open-ended meaning of allegories. It is recognized for its political allegory of the Nehru era by Girish Karnad himself and also other critics like U.R. Ananthamurthy, Aparna Dharwadkar and others. This political allegory has been extended to Indira Gandhi regime as well by the critic Aparna Dharwadkar. It is possible for us to extend this allegorical dimension to other periods in India and in other countries, because it deals with political leadership and it deals with social situations, political situations which have large repercussions on society as a whole. In fact, a critic called Ashish Sengupta compares Tughlaq with Arthur Miller's play The Ride Down Mount Morgan to link Jawaharlal Nehru with the American President Ronald Reagan's regime. So, we can see that there are multiple dimensions of political allegory. We will try to look at some of them. Let us see the political allegory in connection with Jawaharlal Nehru now. The play covers the 20-year reign of Muhammad bin Tughlaq in the 14th century. It corresponds to the 20-year regime of the first Prime Minister of India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. We have eminent scholars and visionaries in both Tughlaq and Jawaharlal Nehru. They are actually shapers of Indian history. Both characters are considered to be glorious failures. The rose garden symbol in Tughlaq is closely connected with Nehru's love for roses. Both these leaders brought out many schemes for the sake of the people, but many of them have been misused more often than really used for the sake of the people. Both leaders dealt with issues of national and religious integration. These integrations persist even today. Some of the problems still that we face are starvation, disease and death, which are problematic in all times, including Tughlaq and Nehru. Both of them thought about an idealistic secular modern India, which is again a dream for all of us. The political allegory in connection with Mahatma Gandhi is also equally evident in the play. What we find in the play is something to do with selfless spirituality of Muhammad bin Tughlaq and also Mahatma Gandhi. What we notice in Tughlaq is a king who is not afraid to be human, just like Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi made a fuss about being human and announced his mistakes to the whole world, and the same thing happens in the case of Tughlaq. Two virtues like humility and self-questioning are common to both Tughlaq and Gandhi. They shocked the Hindus and Muslims alike. They could not dream of achieving that unity, that is Hindu-Muslim unity in our country. These thoughts were born out of idealism and humanism in both Gandhi and Tughlaq. Both of them really appreciated the values of peace, non-violence and cooperation, but in actuality they could not achieve. They gave certain privileges to both Hindus and Muslims and thus alienated both Hindus and Muslims, and they became alienated leaders, and so they had to meet with gory deaths. We have the political allegory of Indira Gandhi also in this play. Indira Gandhi declared the state of emergency in the country, and as a result she made large scale arrests of political leaders. It also led to unleashing of violence on common people. One of the most popular events of Indira Gandhi period was this family planning through coercion. People did not appreciate the kind of coercion power that were exercised on people to conform to the rule that every family must have a planning. We have one more dimension of political allegory. This has something to do with the succession, not to do with any individual. Most leaders in India, probably in other countries also, have the same problem. Who is the next leader is a problem, and in India we are not able to answer that question after every popular leader. So Sheikh Imamuddin asked Muhammad, where are these brilliant line of successes of yours? Where are these guarantors of your balanced future? Whether Tughlaq or Nehru, they thought about India in certain ways, but people who came after these leaders could not continue with the same kind of balance as they maintained. Again, Muhammad tells the rebels, I am a king, I wear the royal robes, I have honored myself with the title of the Sultan, but what gives me the right to call myself a king? So the leader has to prepare a kind of succession of leaders, and also the leader must have some credibility, but these are always questions which are often debated in our country. Further, we have Aziz telling Muhammad, I know I am a Dobi and he was a descendant of the Caliph, but surely your majesty has never associated greatness with pedigree. This is again a problem in our country. Just because some people belong to certain families, do they have greatness? That's a question which is often debated in our country. These are common perennial problems, mostly to do with succession of leaders in our country. So these have political dimensions, and so we describe them as part of political allegory with reference to Tughlaq. The second topic that we have in this further analysis is poetic qualities of the play. We have to remember that Girish Karnad wanted to be a poet, but he became a dramatist. But in his dramas, in most of his plays, we will find certain poetic qualities. Here are some instances from this play Tughlaq. Ratan Singh tells Shihabuddin about the death of Sheikh Imamuddin. Arrows poured into him, and within minutes he looked a gory porcupine, that he says in scene number 4. And similarly, we have Aziz telling Azam about the Hindu woman's dying child. He says, my niece had that illness and went out like a light. This is what he says. So if the child dies, what is the use of giving some privilege to the Hindu woman? That's why he doesn't want to give any privilege. Next, we have an old man telling a young man about the Sultan. The merciful Sultan had made perfect arrangements, but do you know, you can love a city like a woman. His father died, his 6-year-old son also died because of the travel from Delhi to Daulatabad. The fine dust that hung in the air, fine as silk, it covered him like a silken shroud. Later, his wife also died. Now look at this common man, an old man who lost his father, who lost his son, who lost his wife. Then how would he be happy in the kingdom of Tughlaq? We have more similes from the play. We have the young man telling the old man, is it true that there is a strange and frightening passage within this fort? Dark, they say, like the new moon night is the simile. Next, Muhammad tells a young man, an age when you think you can clasp the whole world in your palm like a rare diamond. Like a rare diamond is a simile referred to here. Such similes bring concrete pictures to the mind of the readers or to the viewers of the play. Muhammad also tells Barani, it isn't as easy as leaving the patient in the wilderness because there is no cure for the disease. Don't you see this patient racked by fever and crazed by the fear of the enveloping vultures can't be separate from me? So, patient, disease, vultures, these are all images which are brought to us through these similes. Next, we have Aziz telling Azam, caught him, that is, he is Ghiyasuddin, the descendant of Caliph from Arabia. Caught him, he fell into my trap like a mouse. This game of cat and mouse is played by Aziz on the one hand and Tughlaq on the other hand. We also have some more similes here. Azam tells Aziz, have you seen the city? The people are like mad dogs. Again Azam tells Aziz, on the night we came here, I was so nervous I couldn't sleep, so I was standing by the window looking at those heaps. They looked like giant anthills in the moonlight. So such images add poetic qualities to the play. Now we will discuss the poetic qualities with reference to some of the metaphors used in the play. Muhammad tells Barani in scene 6, tell me Barani, will my reign be nothing more than a tortured scream which will stab the night and melt away in the silence? Scream, stabbing, silence, all these ideas are brought together by Muhammad in his interaction with Barani. An old man tells a young man, I am a man of the plain, son. I find it hard to breathe in this eagle nest. Eagle nest, that is the tyrannical rule of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Muhammad tells a young man, I was the earth, was the smoke, was the sky. He brings an image of everything to himself through the smoke and the sky. And again Muhammad tells Barani, what would you prescribe for this honeycomb of diseases? Honeycomb we know, but here we have honeycomb of diseases. The society has become so complex that he is unable to find a solution. So he further says, I have tried everything, but what cures one disease just worsens another. That's why more and more complications from the beginning to the end we can find in the play. Let's see some more metaphor now. The stepmother in scene 10 tells Muhammad, look at your kingdom now, it has become a kitchen of death. All because of him, that is Najib, I couldn't bear it any longer. According to the stepmother, the whole kingdom is a kitchen of death. That means more of violence, more and more of deaths happen in the kingdom of Tughlaq. Then when nobody is there, Muhammad tells God, I started in your path, Lord. I started in search of you. Why am I become a pig rolling in this gory mud? Tughlaq calls himself a pig rolling in this gory mud. He knows that he is in the wrong path, but he is unable to come out of it. Next, Azam tells Aziz, the Sultan is mad. How can you trust him? Don't you know how he can slaughter people? How can you trust this Lord of Skins? The Lord of Skins is Satan, of course. Next, we have Muhammad telling Barani, you wanted to see history formed in front of your eyes, didn't you? Just wait a few moments and you will see not just the form but the coiled intestines of it. Coiled intestines of it is the image that we have through this metaphor. For poetic qualities, we have some rhetorical questions as well. In a scene where the rebels meet and think of a leader to lead the rebellion against the king, Sheikh Shamsuddin Tajudarfim persuades Shihabuddin to lead the rebels against the king. There he has a series of questions. Shamsuddin says, while tyranny crushes the faithful into dust, how can I continue to hide in my hole? Tyranny refers to the tyrannical rule of Tughlaq. Is it reprehensible to worry about people? Is it a crime to speak out for oneself and one's family? What politics did Sheikh Imamuddin indulge in? Sheikh Imamuddin, who spoke against the king, was killed. So he is asking this question. So you don't know what actually happened behind the scenes. When people are not able to listen to Sheikh Imamuddin, something happened and this man is telling what happened behind the scenes. Who else would do this to an old man like me? And last, we have the sentence, you have the capacity to set things right, won't you worry a little about the people? Now we have two options, to consider oneself, one's own selfish desires, and another is to serve the society. The tyrannical rule of Tughlaq is unbearable. Some people want to take arms against the king, but nobody is there to lead the rebellion. So the old man requests Shihabuddin to lead the rebellion. We have a case of satire throughout the play. It is a political play as well as a satirical play. We can call it a social satire and also a political satire. It is rich in gentle satire, not a very harsh satire. We have one particular scene where, as is comments on Delhi politics in scene 7, it has some meaning for all of us to understand. Only a few months in Delhi and I have discovered a whole new world, politics. My dear fellow, that's where our future is, position, power, and yet it is full of brainless people with not an idea in their head. When I think of all the tricks I used in our village to pinch a few torn cloths from people, if one uses half that intelligence here, one can get robes of power, and not to have pinched them either, get them. It's a fantastic world. Politics is a fantastic world, says as is, particularly Delhi politics. And we have many such events happening in different times at different locations, and this has a political comment on all of us. The writer, as a responsible person for the society, tells us to be a little more careful about how we govern ourselves. Now we come to the topic, human relationships. We have to understand that human relationships are very fragile. Even the kingdom of heaven cannot ensure good relationships among people in the society. Even if God wants to, it's not possible. That's how we have lived for so many years of human history. The son kills a father, the brother kills a brother, the friend kills a friend, the king kills a saint. All these killings have been happening around the world. People suspect one another and betray each other. At any opportune moment, people betray each other. People fight with each other and kill themselves for food, power, position and wealth. These are the determinants of our social progress, according to Girish Karnad. Even a poor man cannot live without facing terrible situations. Even if we don't have directly anything to do with power, we suffer. They cannot have safety and a peaceful life. People alienate themselves from each other. When we fight with each other, naturally we go away from each other, and what we have in this play is a bleak vision of human relationships. There is no trust between friends, between family members, between king and the subject. If there is no trust, then there is no life probably. Let's do some reflections on life with reference to this play. Life is meaningful only when people agree on shared values. So meaning of life can be found only when we accept certain shared values. When values are violated for power, position and wealth, life loses all its meaning. One or two individuals like Sheikh Imamuddin and Shamsuddin cannot do much to help society. Now and then some saints, some really clean men may come into our society, but they cannot achieve much. Even the good Shihabuddin is drawn into the vortex of politics. Shihabuddin has nothing to do with politics. He was a friend of Tughlaq. He came there to Delhi to help the king, to help the people, but then he was also drawn into the complexities of politics. If Tughlaq had not killed Shihabuddin with his own hands, perhaps he might not have become such a violent and ruthless king. Once he tastes blood, he wants to taste more and more of blood. That is a starting point. Ideals like trust, loyalty, friendship, love, etc. can make a difference to humanity. Otherwise, we cannot be human beings. Let's see the comparison between Albert Camus and Girish Karnad. Albert Camus was a French philosopher and a dramatist. He is well known for the myth of Sisyphus, the myth about a man pushing a boulder up to a mountain and then the boulder falling down, and repeatedly doing this, pushing up and pushing up again and again, but never succeeding in keeping the boulder on the top of the mountain. This is an endless repeated labor, meaningless labor. That is an image that we have in the existential tradition. He is an absurdist and an existentialist. He has a play called Caligula. This is again an absurd play. It deals with a cruel and insane king. The cruelty goes to that level of performing his own assassination. That is unbearable tragedy that we have in the case of Caligula. When we come to Girish Karnad, he is an Indian playwright and a public intellectual. He is known for many plays including Tughlaq and Hayavadana. Like Albert Camus, he is also an existential dramatist, but then he has a kind of social secular ideals in his plays or in his outlook. Tughlaq is comparable to Caligula as both are historical plays and both are existentialist and absurd plays. In Tughlaq also we have a cruel and mad king, and he brings about his own downfall that we can see throughout the play. What are the takeaways from this play? Follow your own heart is not such a great ideal. When particularly kings like Tughlaq follow their own heart, then they bring about so much misery for the people. Consider the people around you too. Think about others as well. Listen to people around you and learn from them, like the stepmother or Bharani. Whenever they give some good ideas, listen to them. Forgive people, not just for your own selfish ends, like Ainul Mulk being forgiven by Tughlaq is not good enough. Develop that sense of forgiveness for everybody. Spare people from torture. What is the use of torturing people? You will get torture in return, nothing else. Never indulge in violence, for it can take you nowhere. Violence is not a means to a peaceful situation in our society. Think about the consequences of your plans thoroughly before you implement them. Like copper coin implemented during the time, we have to think again about the consequences, what people will do with that. There are always some mischievous people, crooked people. How do you deal with them? So if you don't have plans to deal with such problems, then your own solutions can be problems for you. That's why Tughlaq says one problem leads to another problem, it gets worsened. Look before you leap is a simple proverb that we have to remember all the time. Take counsel from trusted and worthy people, not people like Vizier Nazib, who may be intelligent, but then what is the suggestion, what is the ultimate end that we have to think about ourselves. Avoid the devil like the coronavirus. We wanted to avoid coronavirus, we were using mask, we were maintaining social distance and all that. Similarly, in our human relationships also we have to keep a distance from the devil, and so we can keep in touch with good angels like Bharani and help ourselves to live in the right path. To give you a summary of the presentation we have had so far, we looked at the objectives of this presentation, considered political allegory with reference to Jawaharlal Nehru, Mahatma Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, even we mentioned Ronald Reagan in connection with Jawaharlal Nehru's period. We attempted to understand the poetic qualities of the play by bringing out certain similes and metaphors in the play. We focused on human relationships in the play, and we found that Tughlaq was alienating himself from the society, from the people, from his own friend, from his stepmother. Such an idea is not good for us. We need to understand that we need to have some kind of relationships with people. We reflected on life. What is the meaning of life when we lose all our close relations, when we lose the entire subject, and then you want to rule a country? What is the use of it? We compared Albert Camus' Caligula with Girish Karnad's Tughlaq and found that both are historical plays, both are absurd plays, both dealt with insane and mad kings. Some of the takeaways from this play are very useful for us. We can follow the heart, but when it hurts people, we should not do that. We should take counsel from trusted people, and we should value certain human values which are universal. If you don't value them, then life has no meaning. So that's the whole idea that we have got from this play. Tughlaq, known as the mad Tughlaq, in spite of the fact that he was a great scholar, intelligent king, he could not lead the kingdom peacefully. So we need to learn from history and help ourselves. Here are some references for you. You may read any of them and help yourself. to understand the complexities in the play Tughlaq. All the best.